Picture this. You're sailing across the ocean, the salty wind whipping through your hair when suddenly your ship begins to sink. No, this isn't the opening scene of a maritime disaster movie, but it is something that many people around the world could soon find themselves facing. By 2050, rising sea levels could displace hundreds of millions of people. And with less than a decade left to turn things around before the climate crisis becomes irreversible, experts are considering all options to help those affected by rising waters, including floating cities. But can we build floating cities? And if so, how would they work? Let's dive into this eye-opening topic. But first, why do we even need floating cities? Well, while some may dismiss them as outlandish, others point to the very real problem of rising sea levels caused by climate change. As the global climate warms, glaciers melt and water expands in volume when it heats up, leading to rising sea levels that threaten coastal communities worldwide. Take Miami, Florida, for example. This vibrant city is home to over 440,000 people. But according to projections from Climate Central, 5% of the city will be underwater by 2040, with up to 13% at risk of chronic flooding every year. Or consider Jakarta, Indonesia, one of the world's largest cities with over 10 million people. Up to 2/3 of the city could be submerged by 2030, displacing millions. But what if we could build floating cities instead? Imagine self-sufficient communities complete with homes, businesses, and even farms, all afloat on the ocean. Now you might be thinking, aren't these just glorified cruise ships? Well, not exactly. While cruise ships carry thousands of passengers, floating cities are designed to house hundreds of thousands of people. One example is the Seasteading Institute's Blue Frontiers project. Founded in 2008 by Patrick Friedman, grandson of famed economist Milton Friedman, the institute promotes the development of floating residential communities known as seasteads. In 2017, Blue Frontiers unveiled its design for a modular floating city that could accommodate 50,000 residents. The proposed city consists of interconnected hexagonal platforms made of concrete and steel, each housing a mix of homes, businesses, and green spaces. Another real-world prototype is the Oceanix floating city concept, developed by the Oceanix Busan team. Led by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, this ambitious project proposes a circular floating city up to 1 mile in diameter, with space for up to 10,000 residents. The Oceanix city would feature stacked floating platforms made of concrete or steel, providing a variety of housing options and community spaces. So how would floating cities work? To start, they would need to be anchored to the ocean floor to prevent them from drifting away. This could be done using long-term mooring systems, which are commonly used for large ships and structures. Additionally, floating cities would require a stable platform to ensure the safety and well-being of their residents. One way to achieve stability is through the use of pontoons, which are large, low-slung platforms that provide a stable base for the city above them. Pontoons can be made of materials like concrete or steel and are typically used in marine construction projects. Another approach is to use tension leg platforms, which are structures that use cables or chains anchored to the ocean floor to keep them stable. These platforms are often used in the oil and gas industry for drilling operations. Floating cities would also need a reliable source of energy to power their operations. One option is to use renewable energy sources like solar and wind power, which can be harnessed on the city's rooftops or integrated into the building's design. Additionally, floating cities could potentially use wave energy converters to harness the power of ocean waves to generate electricity. Wave energy has long been recognized as a promising renewable energy source due to the vast amount of energy present in ocean waves. However, the commercial viability of wave energy converters has yet to be fully realized due to technical challenges and high costs. Nevertheless, advancements in engineering and material science have led to the development of more efficient and cost-effective wave energy converters, making them a viable option for powering floating cities. Ocean waves possess tremendous power, capable of generating electricity to meet the needs of remote coastal communities. Several companies are working on innovative solutions to harness this abundant energy source. For example, Wave Energy Scotland, a collaboration between the University of Edinburgh and the European Marine Energy Centre, has developed a unique wave energy converter that mimics the movement of a duck. This device generates electricity from the vertical motion of waves using a hydraulic system, offering an efficient and reliable way to harness wave power. Another promising approach is the use of floating photovoltaic cells, or FPCs. FPCs are solar panels that float on the surface of the water, allowing them to take advantage of the vast area available in the ocean to generate electricity. This technology has already been deployed in several countries, including Japan and China, where FPC farms have been used to generate electricity for coastal communities. In addition to energy, floating cities would also need to address issues like water supply and waste management. One solution is to use rainwater harvesting systems to collect and store fresh water, which can then be used for drinking and other domestic purposes. Wastewater would need to be treated before being released into the ocean, which could be done using advanced wastewater treatment plants located within the city. It's also worth noting that floating cities wouldn't be immune to the effects of climate change, such as storms and rising sea levels. Therefore, it would be crucial to design these cities with resilience in mind. This includes using materials that can withstand extreme weather conditions and incorporating features that can help the city adapt to changing conditions over time. Now, let's talk about the environmental impact of floating cities. On one hand, they could potentially help protect coastal ecosystems by providing a buffer against storms and rising sea levels. By reducing the impact of extreme weather events on coastal areas, floating cities could help preserve valuable habitats and species that live there. Additionally, floating cities could potentially provide new habitats for marine life, such as coral reefs and artificial reefs, which could help support biodiversity in the ocean. On the other hand, the construction and operation of floating cities could have negative impacts on the environment. The materials used to build the cities could be harmful to marine life if they leach into the ocean. Additionally, the energy required to power the cities could be generated using fossil fuels, which could contribute to climate change and air pollution. Noise and light pollution from the cities could also impact marine animals that rely on quiet and dark environments to survive. Overall, the environmental impact of floating cities would depend on a variety of factors, including the materials used in construction, the energy sources employed, and the overall design of the city. Careful planning and consideration of these factors would be essential to minimize any potential harm to the marine environment. And what about the cost of building floating cities? Well, it's safe to say that they wouldn't come cheap. The cost of materials, construction, and maintenance would likely be high, making it challenging to build floating cities without significant investment. Additionally, the cost of providing essential services like water, energy, and waste management could add to the financial burden of living in a floating city. It's possible that only wealthy individuals or corporations would be able to afford to live in these cities, which raises concerns about inequality and access to resources. Despite these challenges, floating cities represent an intriguing possibility for addressing the issue of rising sea levels and providing housing for those who have been displaced by climate change. The idea may still be in the realm of science fiction, but it's worth exploring all options as we work to create a sustainable future for our planet.